Hi, this is Andy, Golf Zero, Romeo, Victor, Mike. This is the second part of the three-part series on Expert Controller Plus. And this part is about configuration of the application. Okay, so what I will do is switch over to a desktop view. And I'll launch the application from the dock, which is where we put it before. Okay, the same two windows you've seen before now, so I won't cover those other than to point out that in connections it's saying add or enable an amplifier connection because we don't have any at this point in time. So the first thing you probably want to do is come down here to settings. And if we go through connections first, no, tell you what, let's go through application first. So application settings are the settings that globally apply to the whole application. Each of these little windows that you'll notice has this tiny little pin in the top right hand corner. By selecting that pin, you can make that window float above all other windows. So, for example, if I move this one over here now, you'll see it actually goes behind that window, whereas if I turn float off, it now comes in front of that window. So that can be useful if you want to, if you've got lots of a busy desktop with lots of windows on it and you want to keep one window or two windows above all other windows. So by default, that is turned off. So windows behave as they would be expected to on macOS. What you can do with this toggle switch is float the windows by default. So now when you start the application, Expert Controller Plus, it will float windows by default, and then you'll have to deselect the float button in the top right hand corner here to make them behave normally. Show statistical information, so that applies to this little window here. At the moment it just shows the connections that you will have created, the state of those connections, and nothing else. If we turn this on, it will now show the connection, the state, the number of messages the application has sent, transmitted either down the network connection or the serial connection to that amplifier, the number of messages it's received, and the last time it sent a message. It can be just useful if you want to see sort of actual activity going on, but otherwise turn it off. It sits there eating CPU cycles for not a lot of benefit. Accessibility. So as I touched on in the preceding video, under View there is an announcements window, which, because we don't have any connections at the moment, just says no connections available. What you can do is by toggling this button here, is the application will create this window whenever you start the application. So it saves you having to find your way up to View and then select announcements. It'll just be there by default. I'll just pop that over there for a minute. Logging. So this is off by default. There are a number of log levels, and it's sort of hierarchical in nature. So debug is the most verbose logging, so everything gets logged. Info messages is one step down, so messages which aren't in the debug category don't get logged, but all of these others do. And likewise, if it's just emergency, if it's on emergency there, no alert messages, critical messages, error messages, warning messages, etc. down to debug will be logged, but just emergency. So if you like, this is the least amount of logging. This here is the most amount of logging, and logging's off by default because it's really only helpful if something is not working as expected, and the logs can then be examined to try and understand what's going on. Okay, so I'll leave it off for now. I'll leave that on, and that's it for in this general tab. Support lets you. This is the name of the log file it's using to log to. This is where it's logging, the full file spec and the name of the log. This is where the database is, etc. If for some reason in a support scenario you need to go and examine some of this, then you can hit this copy button. It'll copy all of this text, which will then allow you to go to the command line and access that information. Selecting the defaults button just resets all of this back to its default for the logging. That's the application level settings. Okay, if we now have a look at the amplifiers. So this will come pre-configured with these 5 amplifiers from SPE. If we select them, what is described here is the name of the amplifier, which interface protocol it's using. So for a 1.3K, it's what I call expert default, because all amplifiers except the 1K FA use the same interface protocol. So hence this one is on expert default. This is the identifier. If you were to look in the programmer's guide that SPE provide, then this is the unique identifier that's in a status message which identifies that the 1.3K, and these are the power ranges. So this information here is not actually used yet in the application, but it's something I may well use in the future. This field is used, therefore it's important to have that set for the amplifier you choose. So for a Taurus amplifier, you can see the unique identifiers changed there, and these are the values. The 1.5K, the 1K is slightly different in that it has I think what was it? Low and high. I think are the two power ranges available, if I remember correctly. Might be wrong there. Whereas all the others have 3. They have a low, mid, and a max power levels. So this just has the 2 here for low and high, and the PA and volts and amps as well. So as you can see, they're all on expert default, apart from this one, which is the 1KFA. So you can select these and delete them if you want, but you need to have some amplifiers for the application to work. It's best not to probably delete these for now. Although you can always, if I show you, so you can actually just go here, deleting them. And at this point, we wouldn't be able to create a connection because the software doesn't know of any amplifiers. If we want to just recreate those, we can say restore defaults, and it'll recreate them all for you. So if you have changed these and you're unsure what the values should be, my suggestion is just delete them and restore defaults and let the software recreate them for you. So that's amplifiers. It's an item of configuration which you really probably don't need to be changing at all. It's mainly there for some features I'm thinking about adding to the application in the future. Okay, let's have a look at connections. There are no connections at the moment. A connection is a serial or a network connection to an amplifier. So it's between the application and the amplifier. So if we add a new connection, it calls it new connection by default, but we can change this to whatever we like. We'll call that. We want to enable this connection because if you've got multiple connections in this list down here, you might want to disable some, you might want to enable some. Disabling them sort of hides them from the actual application so they don't clutter up the interface. So you need to make sure if you're going to use it that it is enabled. You select what type of amplifier it is. This is a 1K FA. This one is going to be on the serial interface. You have to specify the interface name. Bitrate is good for that as a default. Raise RTS and drop RTS. So if the amplifier is connected on the USB interface, you can raise the RTS signal and it will wake the amplifier from sleep mode. So a sleep mode is when the big red rocker switch on the back of the amplifier is on, it's illuminated, but the amplifier is off effectively, it's not running. So you can wake an amplifier up and then the fans start, the display on the front lights up, etc., and you can start using it. So by raising RTS you can wake an amplifier, and by dropping RTS you can put the amplifier back to sleep. These toggles here, so when you launch the application you can say, look, auto connect to whatever connection this is. So if this was toggled on, then whenever I start the application it would try and establish and open this connection to the amplifier. You can get it to send an off command to the amplifier in addition to dropping RTS if you wish to do that. It's another configuration option which is there for sort of flexibility should you need it. Right. Default windows, so you can have different views of an amplifier connection. You can have a view which is the sort of what I call the LCD panel and its buttons. You could have just the LCD panel, frequently used buttons, and LED panel. I'll show those in a second, so they'll make sense, but basically when you start the connection it will open these windows. So by default it's just that one window, and by default it will close that window when you close the connection. You can choose to open all the windows if you want, or whichever one you might want, perhaps just the buttons. This here is the color of the LCD panel in the application. I'll show you that in operation in a second, but basically you can choose 4 different color schemes. The audible report is for the voiceover, Apple voiceover report for this connection. So you can set the sort of volume level, how quickly you want the voice to speak. and then the information that you want included in that report. So that's pretty much all of the configuration. What I haven't spoken about is if it's a network connection. So if you've got a networked serial adapter and you want to connect using that, then you would select network. You would enter the IP address of that networked serial adapter and the port it's listening on. So if this is a 1.3K. So what? Let's call this networked. This particular one. So it's networked. We know it's on that IP address, and I believe it's on port 4230 is what that one's listening on. So you enter the IP address and port of the serial adapter. If you want to wake an amplifier or put it back to sleep when you're using a network interface, RTS doesn't exist because that's a serial interface signal. However, you can enable Modbus support. Modbus is a protocol that's been around for decades, literally. And therefore, Modbus allows you to send commands to relays and little sort of industrial devices and things like that to control infrastructure. So I know a company called Waveshare builds such an 8-channel relay device. So you would enter its IP address there and the port it's listening on, whether you want to use it to wake the amplifier, sleep the amplifier. You can turn those on, choose which ones you want. And then this information is the configuration information that you will have set up on that 8-channel relay device. I won't go into that here. That's perhaps the subject of another video or some more further documentation. So I'll turn that off for now. We've been through all of these. These are exactly the same for a network connection. Right, so this one's configured. So if I just add another one, and we'll just call this an expert 1.3K. We'll call this one a serial. It's on the serial interface. This is the configuration I did before. That's its interface. That's all okay. That's all okay. Let's turn the volume up a bit and the rate up a bit. If we put this one on, so the serial interface will be on cool blue. The networked interface we'll put on warm white. So we've now got two connections. If we go to where's it gone? Lost the window. There we go, the overview window. You can see that this now lists the two connections and says the interface is closed for both of those. So if I start those, just to show you, if we go to connections, they're listed here. So if I start that one there, that's talking to an amplifier on the serial interface. And if I start the networked one here, let's put them somewhere else on the screen, like that. So the network connection there was warm white, so that's that one. The serial we said would be cool blue, and we can change that. Maybe you want green black, or you want white on black. Doesn't really matter. So that's, and some of these settings can't be changed whilst the connections are active, and they'll be greyed out like up here. So that's a quick walkthrough of the configuration window. In the next segment I'll talk about the groups and how they can be used to auto start multiple connections. Okay, let's look at the configuration of groups. So we don't have any groups configured at the moment. If I create a new group, by default it calls it new group. But let's call this, how about networked amplifiers? And we'll add that one there. So this is a connection we created earlier. We'll add that one. Just got the one in there at the moment. Let's create another group and we'll call this serial amplifiers. And to that one we'll add that one. So let's just go back to connections and we'll add one more here. And we'll call this one an expert 1K FA. Need to select the amplifier type. I'm going to say it's a network connected amplifier. It's on 172.24.11.104 and it's on port 4200. I won't go into Modbus support for this one. Everything else, we can wind the volume up a bit on that one, speed up on that one. Yeah, okay. Oh, let's call this one networked. So you can see we've now got 3 connections. 2 of them are networked and one is on the serial interface. So if I come back over to my groups here, go to networked amplifiers, we've just got this one, the 1.3K in there at the moment. If we now go back here and select the one we just added, the 1K, and add that one in, we've now got 2 amplifiers in this group called network amplifiers, and we've got 1 in that. So I could start them and stop them individually using the connection manager, or I can go to group activation groups and you can see it now lists the 2 groups we've added. So what I can do here is go to network amplifiers. If I hit start on that, you'll see it's actually opened 2 windows now, and it's opened the 1.3K networked and it's opened the 1K networked as well. If I wanted to, I could do the group for the serial amplifiers as well. As you can see, you can quickly have quite a lot of windows if you've got multiple amplifiers. I have just the one amplifier, the 1.3K, which is currently serially attached, this one. The other amplifiers, this is a simulator I'm running that I built as well. This is on a Linux box, but it's good enough for exercising this application. So for the Expert 1K, for example, you know, we can hit set. We can come down to the CAT interface. We could put this one on a Flex Radio interface at 9600. Then you see this has changed. It says Flex Radio, etc. in here. So I think that's pretty much the settings. We've talked about groups, we've talked about connections, amplifiers, and the application settings. We've talked about those briefly and that. Right. So that's it for this video. Hope you found that overview of all the settings useful. Oh, I know there's one thing I didn't show, which we'll do. So announcements, you can see we've now got 3 big buttons here. The little green icons tell me they're all online and working. And if I hit the button for one of these.
Connection, expert 1.3 car, network. Connected to amplifier. Standby mode. Tune mode is not active. Transmit receive mode is receive. Warning, no warnings. Alarm, no alarms. Set mode is not active. Band 160 meters. Power level low. RF power 0 watts.
So that was the report for that one. If I do the serial, which is on 15 meters.
Connection, expert 1.3K, serial. Connected to amplifier. Standby mode. Tune mode is not active. Transmit receive mode is receive. Warning, no warnings. Alarm, no alarms. Set mode is not active. Band 15 meters. Power level low. RF power 0 watts.
So that's an example of the different sorts of voiceover reports that you can get. But I'll cover that again in the next video. Okay, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Hope you found it useful.